Good afternoon and welcome to today's OAAA lunch break. I'm Steve Nicklin, Vice President of Marketing with the OAAA. Today's topic is a review of the Nielsen digital out-of-home ad studies covering our billboard, street furniture, transit, airport, and place-based formats. Joining us today is Nielsen's VP of Media Analytics, Diane Williams, who's been working with our industry for over 15 years and is incredibly well-versed in out-of-home. So we're thrilled to have her today as our presenter. Before we begin, I do want to cover a few housekeeping topics. First of all, we welcome your questions throughout the webinar. So please feel free to submit them via the question box on your screen. Number two, should you have any technical difficulties, please use the chat function and a member of our staff will assist you. Thirdly, after the webinar is complete, you will receive a link to a post-webinar survey, which we will use to tailor our future content. So we please ask that you take the time to fill out this quick survey. And then lastly, a recording of the webinar will be available to share later this afternoon, which you can access by visiting the Lunch Break Series library on the OAAA website. And now I'm going to turn it over to Diane.
Hi, everyone. A lot of you probably know me already. I'm Diane Williams, VP of Media Analytics for Nielsen's On Location group. On Location focuses on media that's consumed exclusively outside the home. I've been doing studies with the OAAA now for well over a decade, and I'm glad to have the opportunity to share these two reports with you. I'm going to go off camera and share my screen, and then I'll take you through the studies. Alrighty. Okay, so the first one that we're going to be featuring this afternoon is the Nielsen Digital Out-of-Home Advertising Report. Before I jump into this, I just wanted to say there have been previous reports that Nielsen has done on digital out-of-home. One you may remember from several years ago looked at specific campaigns that were on digital billboards in a handful of markets. And then Nielsen did our broader out-of-home advertising report last year that looked at out-of-home advertising on a national basis. So this one that you're looking at here is going to focus exclusively on digital formats, and it's going to focus exclusively on a set of markets. So with that, let me take you through the some of the background on this project. So Nielsen did an online survey of a little over 450 US residents aged 16 or older that live in the top 30 markets. Now for this study, we define the markets as the CBSA market definition. You can see a bit of it on the background page within this report. This represents about 45% of the US population. And we wanted to take a look at it because the way that people relate to media, and particularly the amount of digital media available, is going to be different for different markets. So we thought taking a look at the top 30 will provide some insights, considering that we already had taken a national pulse for this for these different media types. Now, in order for someone to qualify to take this survey, they had to have engaged in at least one of 4 activities in the past month. One is walk in a town, city, or downtown area. 2 is either drive or ridden in a car, truck, or other private vehicle. Third, using some form of public transportation. So that could be rail, bus, taxi, or even on-demand car services. And then last is or road, commuter rails, or subways. And again, I'm going to be going through, a lot of these in a few minutes. And the second report that I'm going to be going over is going to talk about transit digital advertising in particular. So you'll be able to get a lot more in depth with that topic. Now, the last thing I'm going to go over before we start jumping into results is when the survey was conducted. Data was collected from February 24th to March 4th, 2020. So this is right before the quarantine period started. Now, I'm going to talk about the value and relevance of this data, even though we're still living in the quarantine period, and that and how COVID is, still going to affect us at least till the end of the year, probably early into next year. There's still a lot of value you can get from this data that was collected prior. So here are a couple of the highlights. So in these reports, we always put together the highlights page. So for transit or public transportation advertising, it has the potential to reach more than half of the consumers at age 16 or older in those top 30 markets. So again, when we're looking at a national number, that was a bit lower, but when we're looking at these top markets, people are living very centrally and they are using mass transportation. So again, the reach here is very good, and I'll talk about in a minute how relevant that reach number still is. Second thing that we're looking at is flying and the potential to reach 6 out of 10 people age 18 or older in the top 30 markets annually using airport advertising. Now, airports are impacted, and I'll talk about them in a moment, but pre-COVID, 1 out of 10 residents in the top 30 markets had flown in the last 30 days. Then we are also taking a look at digital billboards and how 2/3 of the consumers living in those top 30 markets recall seeing a digital billboard in the past month. So again, that's the reach for digital billboard. And that 65% of these people had taken some action, such as visiting a website or watching a movie after seeing a digital billboard in the past year. Now, one of the media that we're covering this time around, and I believe it's for the first time, is digital media that is on moving vehicles. And keep in mind, at the end of the report, you can see all the photos that we used in order to identify these media to the respondents, so that there was no confusion as to what we were talking about. And for these digital billboards, close to 1/3 of the 16 or older commuters in the residents in the top 30 markets recalled seeing a mobile billboard in the past month. And 6 out of 10 of those viewers recalled taking an action on their smartphone after seeing that, essentially mobile billboard pass by. And that is within the last year. Finally, we're looking at the streets, so that we had almost 2/3 of people in these markets say that they have walked in the downtown or city area. And over half of them had noticed some type of digital street level marketing within the past month. And finally, we have the location-based networks. So those are the ones that are attached to a gas station or in office buildings or in shopping centers or inside bars. And we found that 60% of the people that we talked to in the top 30 markets had seen digital screens at one of the locations that we had mentioned in the past month. And more than half of these viewers had taken some action on their mobile device after seeing an ad that is on digital screens at a particular venue type. So again, what we looked at here were high reach and people taking actual actions, and also being able to connect those actions to the advertising that they saw. Because we didn't just say, did you go to a website? We say, did you go to a website after seeing this an ad on this medium? And those are the the exposure versus the reaction that we were trying to pull together. So first thing I'm going to do is talk about those travel patterns in a little more detail. So we had 65% of people in the top 30 markets, or rather, sorry, 85% of people in the top 30 markets having ridden or driven in a car, truck, or private vehicle. 61% walking in a downtown area. 53% having taken some form of mass transportation. And 30% having specifically ridden on a commuter rail or subway. Now, if you look at your individual market, those exposure levels could be different. In New York City, particularly pre-COVID, you have a large portion of the New York City population that rides the subway at least once during an average month. And to really look at these numbers and think, well, how is the quarantine impacting them? Again, we're here talking about people who say that they have engaged in this, activity in the past month. So this is essentially the reach for these activities within the past month. And while people may not be driving as much in their car, they may not be walking around as much, they're still doing it. They're still leaving their home within a month and driving on the roads and walking on the streets. Now, mass transportation, again, depending on the market, can be still at a lower participation rate, even over the past month, but it is beginning to come back. I live in New York City, and I actually have taken the subway in the past month. I only took it, 2 times in the past month, where I normally would have taken it dozens and dozens of times. But it's the idea that as far as the reach for media within subways, I would be included in that reach for the past month because I have done that activity. Now, recent airline travel has been impacted by COVID. I had looked, Nielsen measures broadcast media that is inside airports, and airport traffic for July was at about 25% of what it was the previous July. So this is an industry that is going to take a little time to come back online. But once it does, you have the potential of reaching 58% of the people in the top 30 markets in a 12-month period, and 13% of these people within a 30-day period using airport advertising. And again, these reach numbers will come back up as life begins to normalize again. So the next we're going to look at is digital billboards. So these are the digital signs that are on highways and roadways. And what we looked at was awareness of billboard advertising. So like a few minutes ago, we said 85% of people had driven on a road in the past 30 days. We're saying here that 62% of people in these markets have noticed a digital billboard in the past month, and 38% of them have noticed a digital billboard in the past week. Now, because people may be doing things less frequently than they normally do, people are still going out within the month. Are they necessarily going to be reached every week throughout that month? That's something we would need to look at in greater detail. And there's a lot of information out there that are looking at people's travel patterns on both the monthly and weekly level. But again, it's just looking at, pre-COVID, you're reaching, 2/3 of the people in the top 30 markets just using digital billboards. And people are showing that they engage with this media. So we had asked people who had seen a digital billboard in the past month, how often do they look at the message, consciously look at the message that is on a digital billboard when they see one? And we found that 50% of the people who had seen a billboard consider themselves highly engaged, meaning they say that they're looking at the message on the screen either all the time or most of the time. And there are other, degrees that we had looked at, but again, you're talking about people who are, highly engaged with this media type. And again, it's colorful, and and it's there, and it's eye-catching, and people are looking at it. So the next thing we wanted to do with digital billboard viewers is ask them about different actions they've taken specifically after being exposed to an ad on that medium. So these questions were only asked among people who said they had seen a digital billboard in the past month. Some of the activities that we looked at in relation to digital billboards included visiting a website or searching for the website online. We had over 1/3 of people saying that they had done that activity within the past year. We also asked about if they had visited a store, restaurant, or other business that they had seen advertised. And again, you're getting about 1/3 of those viewers saying that they can remember doing that within the past 12 months. 1/4 of them said that they had watched a movie or had watched a TV show after seeing it advertised on a digital billboard. We had, again, close to 1/4, 23%, saying they visited a social media site or posted on a blog after seeing something on a digital billboard. We had 18% recommending a product that they had seen originally on a digital billboard to some of their family and friends. And we had 17% that said that they had visited some type of physical event, so a festival, a concert, a sporting event, within the past year after seeing it advertised on a digital billboard. So again, if you're looking at digital billboard viewers, 65% of them engaged in at least one of the activities featured here within the past year as a result of seeing a digital billboard. Next, we asked about activities that were specifically done on their mobile or smart device. So again, we asked about, did you search for an advertiser or visit an advertiser's website after seeing a digital billboard? We had 45% that said that they had done that on their mobile device. We had 1/3 saying that they had scanned a QR code or a URL or a hashtag that they saw in a digital ad. And again, this is having done that activity within the past year. We also have roughly 1/4 that say that they downloaded or used an app that was shown to them on a digital billboard. We had 22% that had accessed a coupon or other discount that they had gotten from a digital billboard. And 21% said that they made a purchase on their smartphone in the past year. And that product was something that they had originally seen on a digital billboard. So again, if we look across all of these different mobile or smartphone activities, 52% of people who have seen a digital billboard within the past month have engaged in at least one of these activities within the past year. So over half. Lastly, for digital billboards, we wanted to make that connection between seeing a digital billboard that gave directions to a retail location and how many of those people said that they immediately visited that retail location after seeing the ad on the digital billboard and then finally made a purchase. So the way that you would view these three different charts is first 52% of all the people in the market that had seen a digital billboard had noticed an ad that gave them directions to a retail location. So 52% that had seen a digital billboard saw a digital billboard that directed them to a location. 57% of those who saw a directional message on a digital billboard said that they had immediately visited that retail location after seeing the ad. And again, these are, we're not looking at a specific time period here. We're just trying to connect this different series of activities. So 52% have seen directional advertising. Of those who had seen directional advertising, 57% had visited the store. And among that 57% that had visited a store, 93% said that they made a purchase. And again, because when you see that directional ad and it is reminding you to go to that retail location, you're going there specifically for the purpose of making a purchase. So now if you were to extrapolate this out and say, okay, well, what percent of total people that had seen a digital billboard have made a purchase after seeing, going to a place and seeing, after seeing a directional ad, it would come out to about 28% of total digital billboard viewers in the market saying that they have specifically made a purchase at a retail location as a result of seeing a digital billboard. So again, it's really fun and interesting to take the respondent through all of these different activities and being able to tie together the ROI from exposure to the actual, brick and mortar purchase. So that is going to be tie up our look at digital billboards. Next, we're looking at mobile digital billboards. So again, you see the colors here have changed. So here we're talking about digital messaging that is on the side of a truck or or other moving vehicle. And and what we found in the top 30 markets is that 31% of people said they had seen a mobile digital billboard within the past month, and 15% said they had seen one within the past week. And then when we looked, we wanted to see, well, how engaged are people with these digital billboard messages? Well, we found that 57% said that they were highly engaged, meaning that they look at the message either all the time or most of the time. So we're showing, a third of the people, or roughly a third of the people in the market being reached by this medium. And we're showing that more than half of those people being reached are engaging with this messaging. So next we wanted to look at the actions that people have taken after seeing a mobile digital billboard advertisement. So once again, we have looking at people who visited a website or searched online, and we found that 35% of people who had seen a mobile digital billboard remember doing that in the past year after seeing that mobile digital billboard. We also have 35% that said that they had visited the store or restaurant that they had seen advertised. And again, this is a little different from what I was just talking about with directional advertising. So the directional advertising is telling you this location is not at the next exit. This is looking at just overall, it's an ad for Macy's, and you said that, and these respondents are saying they saw that ad for Macy's on the side of a mobile billboard and that they visited that store after having seen that digital billboard ad. We have 28% that said they saw the movie or TV show that they had seen advertised. Also 28% that said they had visited a social media site or had posted on a blog after seeing an ad on a mobile digital billboard. We have nearly a quarter saying that they attended some type of event. And we have 1 in 5 saying that they had recommended a product that they had originally seen on a mobile digital billboard. So overall, 67% of people who saw a digital mobile billboard engaged in one of these activities within the past year. So moving on to activities that took place on their actual mobile or smart device, we're finding that 45% of people who saw a mobile digital billboard said that they had scanned a QR code or visited a URL or a hashtag after seeing that ad, 45%. We had 41% that said that they had searched for the advertiser or visited the advertiser's website. We had 29% saying that they had accessed a coupon or discount in the past year that they had originally seen on a mobile digital billboard. We had over a quarter saying they've made a purchase on their phone after seeing the mobile billboard. And we also have a quarter saying that they downloaded or used the app shown on the digital billboard. So again, across these different mobile activities, 61% of people who have seen a digital mobile billboard within the past month have engaged in one of these activities within the past year. And then finally, we're going to go back to that build that we looked at among having a digital billboard that gave specific directions to a retail location, and 52% of people who saw a mobile billboard said that there were directions to a retail location within that message. 69% of people who saw that directional ad on a mobile billboard said that they immediately visited the retail location. And among those people who visited the retail location, 98% said that they had seen a purchase. So again, when you look down the line here, you can make that ROI connection between someone being exposed to digital billboards and specifically directional digital billboards and making a purchase in a brick and mortar store. And keep in mind, on the last slide, we talked about purchases that people had made on their mobile devices. So there's a lot of different ways that people can act out after seeing these ads. So we see that they're taking actions online, but we're also seeing that they're taking actions in the real world. So the next digital media we looked at was street level digital advertising. So this is going to be your street furniture. It's going to be your digital bus shelters. It's going to be other ads that are really being directed at pedestrians and people that are driving in an urban or downtown area. And what we found is that 16%, or rather, sorry, that 49% of the people aged 16 or older in those 30 markets that we had focused on said that they had seen a digital street level advertisement within the past month. And that 28% had seen a street level digital advertisement in the past, or sorry, had seen a digital street level advertisement in the past week. So 49% in the past month, 28% within the past week. Now, again, with COVID, people may not be spending as much time walking around outside, but they are leaving their home. So if you're looking at a 4-week schedule, that 49% that you're seeing here is probably still going to be fairly consistent. Because again, this is among the people who live in these top 30 markets, and they are, you know, and 49% of them are being exposed to this street level advertising. And of the people who are seeing street level advertising, 52% say that they are highly engaged. And we're seeing that across the different media, that people who are seeing these digital advertisements are curious about them. They're looking at them either all of the time or most of the time. Next, we're going through the actions that people had taken after seeing street level digital advertising. So we have 34% visiting a store, 31% having searched or visited a website, 29% seeing a movie or TV show. We have the blog visits, we have attending sporting events or festivals or concerts, and we have 19% recommending a product. So 69% of people who have seen a street level advertisement in the past month have engaged in one of these activities in the past year after seeing that digital street level ad. So again, just we're seeing these activities being taken. And when we look at activities specifically being taken on mobile devices, here you're really seeing that connection between media that someone is looking at on the go in, on the streets in a downtown area, and the relationship that that's going to have to activities on their mobile device. So we had 50% of people who had seen a street level digital ad saying that they searched for the advertiser or visited the advertiser's website. That's 1 in 2. And we had 40% saying that they had scanned a QR code or visited the URL or something else that they were able to pull directly from the ad. We had a quarter of them saying that they had downloaded an app, a quarter that said that they had gotten a coupon or discount, and 23% saying that they had made a purchase on their smartphone. So 62% of people who had seen a street level digital ad had engaged in one of these activities within the past year. And then looking at what retail activities we can directly connect with exposure to directional street advertising. We found 51% of people who see digital advertising have seen one that gives them directions. 65% of people who have seen those directional street ads have visited the location immediately after seeing the ad, and 92% have made a purchase at that brick and mortar store after visiting. So again, we're seeing that connection like we've seen with some of the other media being demonstrated down the line. The next group we're looking at is place-based digital advertising. Now, place-based digital advertising is a very broad spectrum. We have, it could be gas stations, it could be bars, it could be office buildings, it could be malls, and you can see all of the locations that Nielsen asked about, both in the question on this slide within the report, and then also on the back of this survey where we're showing all of the visual aids that we presented. So here we're seeing that 62% of people in these markets have visited, or rather have seen, a digital place-based ad in the past month. 38% have seen one in the past week, and 50% of them said that they were highly engaged. And again, going through all the different activities, you're seeing a third of the people having visited a store or restaurant that they saw advertised. Again, that's a little higher than what we've seen with some of the other media. So here we have media-based advertising sending people to another venue to visit. And then, all the other activities we looked at going down the line, and nearly 2/3, or 64%, having engaged in one of these activities after seeing a place-based ad. We also have 54% of people having seen a place-based ad having engaged in one of these, smartphone or mobile activities. So again, you have 42% of people visiting sites. You have over a third looking at QR codes. So there is a two-way communication that's happening between the viewer and the advertiser that's being brought on through these place-based digital ads. And finally, we've had 45% of place-based digital ad viewers having seen a directional ad on that medium, 70% having immediately visited that retail location, and 89% saying that they made a purchase. So again, these venue ads are showing not only things that are being sold online, but also brick and mortar. And then finally, we have airport digital advertising. And we have 69% of people who have flown within the past year saying that they had noticed digital advertising within the airport. 54% were highly engaged. 68% engaged in one of these activities that we're seeing here. 59% had engaged in an activity on their mobile device. Specifically, QR codes are now at the top of this list, with 47% saying that they took QR code or hashtag or URL off of a digital airport ad and visited that location. And finally, we're seeing, 62% of those digital airport advertising, or 62% of people who saw airport advertising saw a directional ad. 70% visited that advertiser, and 96% had made a purchase. So that takes us through this first survey. And we have make sure always that you look at the back. Our appendix have a great deal of information. It gives you the demographic profiles of all these viewers, so you can see what different demos pop for different digital media types. You can see it indexed against the populations. You can see a breakdown of people in different demo groups and their exposures to each of these ads. And then finally, you can see all the visuals. So that is taking me through the first report. Now I'm going to switch over to the a second survey that we did earlier this year, and this is specifically looking at digital transit advertising. Now, the digital transit advertising survey was actually focused on 6 markets in particular: New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, San Francisco, Oakland, Boston, and Washington, D.C. And here we were looking at people who had ridden as a or had been a passenger on rails, trains, or subways, or had ridden as a passenger in a taxi. And again, it was 400 respondents, giving us a margin of error of plus or minus about 5%. And it was also surveyed right before the quarantines began. And I'm going to go straight into the, I'm going to skip over this because I'm going to get to all of these key findings on other slides, and I want to make sure that I'm able to highlight it. So consumer rail, trains, and subways, we found that 61% of the people that live in these 6 markets have ridden on these specific transit lines. And we list them here in the report, so you know exactly what we're talking about for each of these cities. And we found that 61% of the folks in these cities had ridden on these rails in the past 30 days. And again, this reach number may stay fairly steady. People might not be riding on the rails every day or as often as they were, but a lot of them are still doing it at least once within the past month. So these reach numbers hold. We're going to look at a couple of different types of transit advertising. One is ads that are on the concourse or corridor. So these are, like, if you're in New York City, you see those big, beautiful digital displays that are lighting up the different corridors that you walk through as you switch between different digital or different subway lines. And what we found is that 68% of people who have ridden on trains or subways in these 6 markets have seen a digital concourse ad, and 41% had seen one within the past week. And again, that 68% may stay pretty solid. You know, every week, you know, again, we would have to look at that. And the engagement here, we have 54% saying that they were highly engaged with that media that they saw on the corridor of the train or subway station. Then looking at all of the different types of activities that people can engage in, 67% of people who saw a concourse or corridor digital ad said that they engaged in one of these activities, with that top activity being search for the website of the advertiser or search for the advertiser online. We also had 29% saying they specifically visited the store that was advertised on that corridor. And as far as the mobile activities we've been looking at in these 2 reports, 59% of people who have seen concourse advertising have engaged in one of these activities online in the past year. And keep in mind, 22% of that is actually having made a purchase on their phone after seeing an ad in a subway or rail station corridor. And finally, we had 60% of the concourse ad viewers saying that they had noticed a directional ad, 48% saying that they had visited a location after seeing that rail concourse ad, and we had 82% saying that they had made a purchase. So again, not just online activities, but offline activities that are being driven by concourse advertising. And then we can look at platform advertising. This is the advertising in the area where people are waiting, so they're not just walking past it. This is where people are spending a good deal of their time in the transit station. And we have 66% of people who have ridden rails saying that they saw digital advertising on the platform where they were waiting. 28 or 38% had seen that advertising in the past week, and 60% said that they look at that at those messages either all or most of the time. That's the highest engagement level we've seen so far. And you know, because again, people are spending a lot of time on the platforms and they're engaging with these ads. So 2/3 are seeing it in the past month, 60% are engaged. We have 69% of these people having engaged in one of these activities. Again, having, visiting the website and search being number one. Number two on this list is having seen a movie or watched a TV show that they saw advertised on the subway platform, and over a quarter visiting a store. On their mobile devices, we had 61% of people who had seen platform ads engaging in one of these activities in the past year after seeing that ad, with, again, search being number one at 42%, and scanning a QR code. Again, these platform ads are ones that you can get close to, and you're at, you're near them, and you're able to, get this direct information from the ad. And 38% of people had done that after seeing a platform ad in the past year. And then finally, looking at the relationship between having seen a directional ad on a rail platform, immediately visiting the location and making a purchase. Again, it's similar to some of the other media that we had looked at. 57% said they saw directional advertising. Of those people who saw directional ads, 48% visited the retail environment. And of those people who are visiting the retail environment, 87% are making a purchase. So now the last thing we're going to look at here is taxi riders and taxi advertising. So in these markets, we have a good deal of people that have ridden in a taxi in the past 30 days. So 29% of people in the 6 markets we were looking at had ridden in a taxi in the past 30 days. And we're not counting ride shares here. We're not counting Ubers and Lyfts. These are specifically, your more traditional taxi cabs. So you have 29% that have done it in the past 30 days. And then when you're looking at people who have done it, in longer periods of time, we see almost everyone in these markets have ridden in a taxi at one time or another. And then, so of that taxi advertising, we have taxi top advertising. So the ad that you'll see on top of the taxi. And we have 41% of people age 16 plus in the DMAs saying that they had seen a digital ad on a taxi top in the past 30 days, and 22% saying that they had seen a taxi top ad in the past week, and 51% saying that they were engaged. And keep in mind that 41% that say they saw a taxi ad, they didn't have to ride inside the taxi for that. That's just everyone within the DMA, or rather within the, not DMAs, I apologize, within the measured markets said that they saw a taxi top ad, and 51% saying that they're engaged. And of those people who saw taxi top ads, 59% had engaged in an activity, a quarter of them having searched or visited a website. We have 46% of them saying that they had engaged in some type of mobile or smartphone activity, which includes, again, 38% of them saying that they had searched, and a third of them saying that they had scanned a QR code, URL, or hashtag, or engaged in SMS after seeing a taxi top ad. And we had 1 in 5 saying that they made a purchase on their smartphone after seeing a taxi top ad in the past year. And again, making that connection between a taxi top ad that said, visit this location of this retailer. We had 42% of people who saw a taxi top ad saying that they had seen a directional ad, 63% having visited the site or visited the location, and 91% making a purchase. Now, the final thing that we're looking at is the interior of taxis. So these are the ads that you're seeing on the digital screens in the back of a taxi. So of people who have ridden in a taxi in the past 30 days, 68% said they saw digital ads inside that taxi. 40% of people who had ridden in a taxi in the past month said that they saw digital ads inside a taxi within the past week. And we have 76% saying they were highly engaged with that media. Now, this is by far the highest that we're seeing as far as that deep engagement. And again, it makes sense. We saw high engagement with people who are spending a lot of time on the subway or rail platforms. Here we're seeing people who are spending, you know, their entire ride time with those digital screens in the back of taxis, and 76%, 3/4 of them, saying they're highly engaged with the messaging on those screens. And we're seeing 76% of people who have seen these interior taxi ads have engaged in one of the activities that we're seeing here, with visiting a social media site or blog being the #1 thing they did. And also 34% of them saying that they had seen a movie or watched a TV show. We had 67% that said that they had engaged in a mobile activity, which includes scanning a QR code. Again, you have a lot of time with this media, you're highly engaged, and we have more than half of the people who have seen a interior digital ad in the past month saying that they have scanned a QR code within the past year. And then finally, looking at that, you know, closing that loop as far as, you know, brick and mortar sales, 65% of those interior taxi ads had a directional retail message. 67% visited that location, and 86% made a purchase. So again, just like with the first survey we had seen, we have a lot of profiling information for people who have engaged in all of these activities and have seen all of this media. So I highly recommend that you take a look at it, and you can see the visuals that Nielsen showed, so that you can understand what we were measuring and that the respondents understood what we're measuring. So with that, I am going to stop sharing my screen and go back on camera, and I'm going to see if there are any questions in the last, 10 minutes or so that we have. So
Diane, there are a few questions, and I'm going to answer one of them right off the bat, and then I'm going to tee up one for you. But we always get questions during the webinar. Will the presentation be available for download? And every single webinar OAAA does is available for download. You can get that by accessing our home screen, or you can go into Stay Connected tab on our website, and that's where the webinar library is. And you can always access all of our webinars, including past webinars there. I have one other question, Diane, I'm going to take before I turn it over to you. But we had a question about how does this stack up to attribution studies that have been conducted via mobile phones regarding driving store traffic? That's really an apples to oranges comparison, because this study that Nielsen did is a survey. So we're asking consumers to recall their behaviors and actions, whereas the attribution studies are actually done on using the mobile devices that actually track specific consumer patterns and behaviors. And so in some senses, it could be considered more reliable. But we do have a whole suite of attribution case studies available on the OAAA website. It's under the Proof Out-of-Home Works. And then you go to the case studies section, and then there's an out-of-home attribution studies tab that you can click on to get more information there. But Cubic does an annual benchmarks report, and they did show that out-of-home, in comparison to both mobile and mobile plus desktop, was #1 in driving store traffic. It was most successful. And Diane, the question I wanted to ask for you is, if you could talk again, I think some folks were able to join a little bit after we started, but talk again about the relevancy of this study in today's pandemic environment, and what the results say and why they're still relevant, particularly around the reach numbers and some of the engagement and actions that we're able to drive with out of home.
So Nielsen is monitoring activities that are impacted by COVID from the very beginning. We are, again, separate from this, but we're doing weekly surveys of the U.S. pop and looking at the percent of people who have visited different types of venues and have driven and have, done different activities, and how many days out of the past 7 days they've engaged in the activity. And what we find is that people are still leaving their homes. They may not be doing it as often, but they are leaving their homes. And when we look at the long-term impact of COVID, like for office buildings, it's not that people won't go back to office buildings eventually. The amount of time they spend in the office building may be a little different. Some people may be going, 2 times a week or 3 times a week as opposed to 5 days a week, but they're still going. The reach for these media is still there. It's just the frequency of exposure that may be impacted. And again, for driving, people still had to go to the grocery store, and grocery store visits were high, or were at a level that you would expect them to be throughout the pandemic. People always needed food. They always needed gas for their, we do gas station TV. They always needed gas. They're things that people are always going to need to do. So if you're looking at the reach over a month, that reach is going to be there. And that's what I always say about out of home. So for Nielsen, our planning tools have TV, digital, and digital place-based broadcasting that are available. And people who go to digital like out of home place-based broadcasting are going there because they're trying to increase their reach. A TV schedule hits a certain plateau with reach after a while, and you have to spend a lot of money in order to try to reach new TV viewers that you haven't already hit in your schedule. Out of home, it had so many new eyes to a campaign, and those new eyes are going to be there over a 4-week schedule. They're still going to be there even on a weekly schedule. So that's the thing to always remember. People are leaving their houses. They're still doing things. They're just doing it in a different pattern. Were there any other?
We have one last question I think that we could quickly try to address. And you might not have this readily at your fingertips, but there was a question on out of home's ability to drive mobile engagement and click-through rates in comparison to perhaps other media. And I don't know if you have any of that information available or not.
I'd have to take a look and see. We famously did that study where we looked at online activities being driven by different types of media, particularly, comparing out of home to offline media. And we saw that, for dollar spent, the amount of activity that out of home generates was more valuable than some of the other media we were looking at. So yeah. I would probably point to that survey as being a good place to get those answers.
Tremendous. Well, thank you so much, Diane, for sharing your expertise for us and that thorough and review of the studies. We really appreciate it. Thanks to all of you for joining us today. Please take a minute to complete the survey. All the studies and this webinar presentation will all be available on the website later this afternoon. Actually, we do have the studies already posted in the marketing research section. And then there's a whole suite of infographics that we'll be sharing with you also that'll be posted on the webinar, on the website later today, looking at the seven different format types that Diane just reviewed. So it's a quick one-page summary that you can utilize in your selling efforts. Thanks again very much for joining us today. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.